I believe in an academia that goes beyond the university classrooms, which is why, whenever possible, I like to engage with NGOs or other civil society organizations, as well as to provide academic coaching for men and women who might be struggling within academia. Seeing how my work contributes to the real world, to real transformations, is what actually makes me thrive. For me, leadership means creating spaces for other people to grow and thrive. I believe in a leadership style that fosters collaboration and empathy and is not afraid to question old structures of power. To support women as catalysts of change, I believe it's important and necessary to rethink structures rather than simply helping individuals navigate them. For change to happen, it's not enough for women to be present, they need to be empowered.
Please join our next seminar in the Catalyst of Change series.
Welcome to the Catalyst of Change Women Leaders in Science Seminar Series. This seminar is in English with interpretation available in Spanish, French, and Hindi. You may select the language of your preference at the Zoom bar menu. We invite you to follow us in LinkedIn, YouTube, and social media using the hashtag Women in Science for the Catalyst of Change Women Leaders in Science Seminar Series. We will be hearing today from a leader in sociological research, Dr. Ester Serra Mingot, postdoctoral research fellow at the Centro de Investigación y Docencia Económica, CIDE, and professional academic at Mañana También Abrimos. Dr. Ester Serra Mingot will have a conversation with Ester Serra David, who is an associate scientist in genome editing at CIMIT, based in Texcoco, Mexico. We invite you to submit your questions and comments on the Slido tool to be addressed in the Q&A session right after the conversation. Now, I would like to welcome Dr. Brian Goberts, Director General of CIMIT, to officially open the event and introduce our distinguished speaker of today, Dr. Ester Serra Mingot. Dr. Goberts, over to you. I think there is a kind of technical, something is happening. Dr. Brand has been blocked his camera and audio.
Now I'm here.
Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon. Hi, Isabel, how are you? Good to see you. Sorry, some technical issue apparently. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to our webinar. And this is actually the fifth catalyst, the 50th catalyst of change women leaders in science. Today, as Isabel already presented, we have a true catalyst of change. Esther is a social anthropologist, a migration scholar, and a gender specialist that will be talking with us today, as Isabel already also indicated. So with that, let's not wait more and over for this conversation. Thank you very much.
So, should I start?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, let me, hold on a second. Let me just share the screen. I prepared a small presentation. So share, I hope you can see it.
Yes, we can see it. Yes, okay, very good.
Okay, great. So, well, first of all, thank you very much, to everyone for organizing this, and especially thanks to Jennifer for inviting me to be part of the Catalyst of Change. I'm really honored to be here. And well, actually, when I was preparing this talk, I kept on coming back to three ideas that have shaped my life, I think, from the very beginning, right? And maybe yours as well. And they are the resilience to go on, the adaptability not to break,
and the wisdom to know when it's time to let go. So today, I'm not just going to talk about stories of success or failure, although they will be there, right? But I would like to talk more about whatever things are coming in between, right? So about the costs of making it in academia or in any professional field, no matter what, about the pain of letting go when the time comes, and about the power of deciding how we want to live our lives, regardless of what the system is expecting from us. So I would like to start this presentation by sharing with you some bits of my story, my own personal story, because who we are now as professionals and also as human beings is shaped by our experiences in lives, our role models, and also the social expectations from us. And truly, I believe that understanding the journey is just as important as any title, degree, or journal or article, published in a journal. So let me start talking to you a little bit about my life. I'm not sure if I can remove this. No, let me put it here so it doesn't, it's not annoying in the middle of the screen. So I come from Alcoy. Maybe some of you know, most of you probably you don't. It's a small town in Spain here, right where the arrow is pointing. And right now we are 60,000 inhabitants, although we used to be much less. And we used to be known for our textile industry, although nowadays that's not the case anymore. And still, the city is relatively famous or well known for some traditions, I would say. A very well-known tradition all over the world is Camilo Sesto, a very, very famous Spanish-speaking singer, our football team in the third division, and two particular traditions that have been highly contested, not only at the national level, but also internationally. And I think they're worth mentioning here in this context. First of all, the until recently highly male-dominated the Moors and Christians Festival and the Three Wise Men Parade. Probably those of you, if there's someone coming from the Netherlands with the Zwarte Piet, will know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, feel free to have a look later on the internet. It's highly polemical, but I don't have time to go about this here. But just to let you know that I come from a highly traditional town in Spain. So let me go back a bit to my childhood because I think it all links back to there really nicely. So as a child, I come from a working class family. So my parents used to work a lot. My dad in a factory, my mom in a shop selling gifts. And so I spent most of my childhood with my grandparents. So basically I grew up with them. They are here in the picture with me. Actually, this picture was taken at Easter, so very, very convenient. As I lived with them, I spent most afternoons watching soap operas and documentaries, such as this one. Actually, at the time, without internet, Netflix, or anything like this, we were really limited to 1, 2, 3 TV channels. And this was our favorite one, right? So loads of documentaries, mostly on African animals in the savannah and so on and so forth. And I was truly fascinated. And ever since I was a little girl, I thought, I want to go to Africa. What to do what? I was not sure, right? I was very small. I didn't know, but I really was fascinated by them. So then I became a teenager, an angry teenager, like most of us become. I was not sure what I wanted to be. What should I study to work in Africa? That was the thing that I continued thinking. Who was behind those documentaries? Who were those people? It was hard to know, again, without internet or a social circle of non-academics. As I said, I come from working class, so all my family, including extended family, were just workers, right? No one had gone to university, no one knew really how to guide you, right, on which step to follow. So I remember back in the days, I used to spend a lot of time in a social center nearby where I lived, a very small place where they would have two of these super old computers that took forever to load an internet page, right? And well, that was my second home, let's say, right? So I asked the social workers there, what should I do? What should I study to do this? Nobody really knew. So in the end, I went for veterinary because it seemed to be the most logical step, right? To go to Africa and work with animals there. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. It was not what I expected. And then I think it was when I experienced my first crisis in life, I felt like I was a failure, right? Why? because I had wasted one academic year. I started veterinary, and half a year through it, I thought this is really not for me. It was very painful, but I had these two choices, right? Do I continue to do something that I'm really not happy with, or should I just stop and see what I do after? So with a lot of pain in my heart, because I was really like feeling like a failure and just not doing what I was expected to do, I quit my bachelor in veterinary sciences. So even though I felt I was a failure, in that year, I managed to get my driving license, I think it was my first English language certificate. And then I also had the luxury, just to be ironical, to have my first encounters with the labor market in Spain. And with that also, the first encounters with gender-based discrimination. So I remember back in the days, I was just walking around in the street thinking, oh, I need to make something out of this half a year, right? That I didn't use studying as I should have done. And then I saw this job offer in one of these temporary job agencies where they needed someone who could speak English and who could drive a car. So I thought, cool, this is for me, right? I know how to speak English and I can drive a car. So I went in and this is what they told me. We don't want women because soon you all end up getting married and then you get pregnant and then you cannot work anymore. At the time, I think I was around 18 years old, something like that. I was just shocked, right? And I just went home and cried. Like that was the only thing I thought I could do, right? Because even though I asked them, but why? I don't even have a boyfriend. I don't want to have kids. I don't want to get married. It was nothing, right? Like talking to the walls. They didn't want me. And they kept on repeating this. So eventually, when this passed and life went on, I decided to study translation and interpreting. So I took my whole 4-year degree in Spain, in Alicante. And from there, I moved on to the labor market after my bachelor degree. As I said before, no one in my family came from academia. So it was like, okay, you finish your bachelor and then you go to work. Made sense. So first of all, I don't know if I can remove this, but anyways, I hope you can see it. I worked as a Spanish teacher in London, thanks to grant by the Spanish government, by the Ministry of Education. They would allow people in Spain studying translation or linguistics or languages to go and teach Spanish abroad. So I was granted this fellowship and I went there for a year. Afterwards, I moved back to Spain and I worked as a translator, in an advertising company. And I don't know, after half a year, I realized that was really not for me. I was not too happy to be in an office 8 hours a day. And then I always had in my mind this idea of, what about my dream to go to Africa, to travel and to do other things, right? So again, against what all the expectations, because I have to say the expectations for me at the time were to settle down, right? To just, you have a job, a steady job, it paid well, so you stay here. Maybe you get married, maybe you have kids, and maybe you buy an apartment or something, but I was really not buying it. So I quit that job and I moved to a very low paid job as a tour leader in Egypt and Jordan. It was a nice experience. I was there for like half a year. Then the company closed down, so everything didn't work out as expected. But in the meanwhile, I learned a lot, and again, I had to experience more situations of gender-based harassment and discrimination. So just to point out two of the, I would say, most, I don't know, I wouldn't call it important ones, but the ones that really shaped the way I saw this type of situation was one that happened in Jordan when I was working as a tour guide there. Me and other female colleagues had been regularly, right, constantly harassed by a male colleague, Jordanian male colleague. None of them had said anything, but when my time came and I had to experience that situation, right, I went to my boss, right, in Egypt, and I told him what was going on, and his answer was, "You must have misinterpreted it." I guess many women who have gone through this type of thing, you know how it feels, right, to be told this when you have experienced this type of situation. So I immediately quit and I went back to Spain. In Spain, again, I continued to look for jobs. And then through a relative of mine, I got in contact with a small, it was really small entrepreneurship, and it involved traveling, right? So trading, traveling, and so on. So the idea was for me to travel with the boss to countries in Latin America, but mostly African countries, most French speaking or English speaking, to help him mostly with the language part, right? So I did a couple of interviews, everything went fine. And then one day he's like, actually the day before signing the contract, he tells me, I would like you to see my wife before signing the contract. And I'm like, why? I didn't really understand. And then I kept on asking him, no, because he didn't want to tell me. So eventually he told me this. My wife wants to check you up before you come to work with me on a business trip because she wants to make sure you're not a husband stealer. And just for those of you who speak Spanish, he used the word, quiere ver que no seas una lagarta. That's a really low word to just to tell you, if you want to sleep with me, right? And steal me from her. It was quite shocking. Again, I went home crying, and again, I didn't take the job. So at that point, I decided to go back to the linguistic field, and I moved to Barcelona, where I was hired to do conference interpreting, right, for a well-known car company at the time. Everything went really well, and I felt really fulfilled with what I had studied, right? That was kind of translating to the labor market. However, in 2008, 2014, I'm sure some of you will remember the huge financial crisis, and in Spain it was really bad at the time. So the jobs in the interpretation field became less and less and less, right? So it was really hard to make a living in Barcelona. So also at the time, my whole family was unemployed. My brother was studying at the university, and well, it was not easy, right? So I was really thinking, what can I do? What can I do? And fortunately, I come from a context in Spain and also many other European countries with a relatively strong welfare state. So I was able to apply for, my first thought was, I want to go back to education, right? Because if you go back to education, you go into this sort of welfare support cycle. So you're a student, you get lower prices, you get sometimes scholarships, grants to allow you to survive, right? So I applied for a grant and I got it, and I did a master's in Barcelona. Part of the money of the grant went to support my brother and also my family. After that degree, still the crisis was on. This was 2010, 2011. So again, no job possibilities. So again, I went back to the education line. I applied for another master's, and then I got this Erasmus Mundus, probably some of you know, master's in migration and intercultural relations. And I think that was the beginning, no, of my second sort of like professional stage in my life. No, first it was more languages and translation, and then it came more the research part and the migration part. So through this master's, I got the opportunity to study in Germany, in Oldenburg, Norway, Stavanger, and Sudan, in Khartoum. And I circled here Khartoum because if you know, remember at the beginning, I told you I was kind of obsessed with going to Africa and working there. So this thing started to materialize here, right? So this scholarship gave me the opportunity to go to Sudan, to go to Africa, to Sudan in particular, and to work and study there. And it was really an experience that shaped, I think, the rest of my life and the rest of my career. After finishing my master's, I have to say I was never interested in doing a PhD. I was not even sure what a PhD was at the time. I'm talking about 2013 when I finished my master's. So I applied, my idea at the time was to work for NGOs, the humanitarian sector, something on those lines, but nothing seemed to work out. Like all I got was rejections from these fields. They all told me your CV is too academic. And I thought, well, then let me go fully academic, right? So then I applied for a PhD in the Netherlands and I got it. And as I said, I was not even sure where I was getting into. My family were, are they going to pay you for studying? And I was like, yes, apparently, right? So I'm just, it might seem unbelievable, but that's the way it was, right? I was not truly sure what I was going to do. No one actually was. So it was in 2014 that I started my PhD in the Netherlands. I finished it in 2018 with cum laude, to my surprise. Someone not coming from academia, right? Everyone was really proud, and I was also really happy. But to be completely honest, it was nice, but it was not the biggest success in my life, if you know what I mean. So this PhD took me across the Netherlands, the UK, Sudan, and France. So a lot of mobility involved in it. It was on social anthropology, and in particular on, I looked on how Sudanese migrants and refugees in the Netherlands and in the UK organized their social protection for themselves and for their families back in Sudan. So basically, whenever there is a crisis in someone's life, like for example, an elderly person to take care of, kids needing to go to school but having no money to send them to school, or being unemployed, for example, how do people organize these things, especially when we're talking on a migration refugee context, and then in a transnational context, right? So I was really in my field, right? Like if you remember, before I told you I went back to education just to get access to welfare support. So many of like the whole, my point is like the whole development of the PhD came quite naturally to me. Of course, work had to be done in terms of theories, methodology, and so on and so forth. But my previous life experience was crucial, I would say, to shape the whole development of the PhD. In fact, I have to say my PhD experience was relatively nice. I enjoyed it, but although I had a good time, that was not the case for many of my colleagues, and for whom navigating the PhD was a challenge, right? And there were burnouts, there were depressions, there was a lot of not nice situations in there. And sometimes they asked me, well, how do you do it? You know, you seem so relaxed and everything. And I don't know if I would have to give some advice. And here I think it's a good opportunity to put it out there for maybe some of you who might be considering, this path or are already in this path. So my first tip is to learn and enjoy as much as you can, but always remembering that you will never ever know everything. And I think this is a big mistake that many people in academia do, maybe forever, or at least at the beginning, right? It's this idea of I need to know everything about the topic. This is not possible. Then something really important is to see your PhD as for what it really is, and that is just a job. You're not a student anymore, and you're just an employee. So it's important that you set timetables, that you find time for yourself, time for your family, time for your hobbies. Otherwise, it becomes really, really difficult. And also, what is important is to learn to set boundaries with your supervisors, and that's from the very beginning. And this is related to the first one, because sometimes I saw that supervisors are seen as, I don't know, maybe like as human gods, right? Like they know everything. And many people come from doing a master's. So it's this idea of student-teacher relationship, but it's actually more than that, right? It's an employee and boss-employee relationship. And finally, taking care of yourself. And this comes because, well, this was actually the main point for which I was invited to this talk. A couple of months ago, I don't remember, I posted something on LinkedIn about an experience of sexual harassment I had while doing my PhD on the field. And well, it was an experience that it was totally unexpected. I didn't know what to do. When I told my supervisor, it was a bit of like, oh, I'm so sorry this happened, but are you sure you want to talk about it on your thesis, right? So a bit like, let's not make a big fuss out of this. And I was like, no, I think actually it's very important to talk about this. And this is something that I was quite surprised based on this LinkedIn post. So many answers came from other women and girls, well, women, young women, and who had gone through this type of experience in the field, especially when doing their PhD or postdocs. And I was really surprised because academia should be this safe space, right? And there is actually a certain degree of neglect of unexperienced PhDs. And this not only comes for situations of sexual harassment in the field, but many other situations. Like, just to give you another example, when I was going to Sudan to do my field work, there was no way for me to get an insurance, right? Like a health insurance to go there. And this was because Sudan had this embargo. I think nowadays still has, but at the time it was. So there was no way for me to get an insurance company to insure me to go to that country. And from the university side, all I got was like, well, it's okay, just go or just find something. And the time was coming, I was not able to do that. So I saw myself in the position to have to report to the people who gave the grant. And then a big fuss happened, right? But I got my insurance. So the point is, you need to speak up and really make sure that you yourself take care of yourself throughout the way. So after finishing my PhD, again, I tried to, go into a more academic position, like to get a permanent position. But since all my PhD had been based on research grants, I didn't have enough teaching experience. So that was the answer I got all the time. So when trying to go to the labor market, actually academia's labor market, but the industry, right? Let's say, I got the other answer. Your background is to academics. So I was like a bit stuck in the middle, right? And this is something that I also hear from many people who have gone through a PhD and maybe a postdoc or two. So then I decided, okay, let me go back to more research-oriented, sort of like a career. But instead of academia, I went to a think tank in Germany. That think tank took me to Ghana. That's why I put the Ghana flag here, to do research here on migration and return. Again, another crisis came. So in 2019, 2020, the COVID arrived. And since this job was really, it involved a lot of traveling. So everything stopped. I was really afraid that we were going to be fired, right? Because the project was just not moving. And as you all remember, there was no day when we could see the end of COVID. So I got a bit stressed out. And then I decided to, again, go back to the sort of grant fellowship research arena in academia. I got a PhD to start to do research in Mexico on African migration in transit through the Americas towards the US and Canada. Then I got another grant. I had to go back to Germany. Then I got another grant and I had to go back to Mexico and another grant and another grant and like this, right? So postdoctoral grants I'm talking about. And this actually led me to to be in Mexico, I think since 2021. I think, yes. End of 2020. I moved to Mexico and I did like 2-3 postdocs, right? All with different types of funding and grants. And I've been working lately on two main projects. So first of all, as I said, African transit migration through the Americas, and then integration of LGBTIQ plus displaced persons in Mexico. All this, as I put here, right, as you can see, moving from Ghana to Germany, then to Mexico, then to Germany, then to Mexico again, all this involves a lot of mobility, right? And it is precisely this hypermobility that I have been encountering as problematic, right, in my own life, but also something that I encounter all the time with postdoctoral fellows and researchers. And well, this is just to clarify, right, why this happens. Many of the grants that are given in academia, research, and so on come with requirements, right? There are multiple requirements, but often one of these requirements is you cannot do this research or this project in a country where you have been living the 2 or 3 previous years. It depends. Each one has a different time, the requirement, but that's what happens, right? So in a way, it's like pushing you to move out from your previous location to another place, right? And this comes at a very, very high cost. So first of all, there is the stress and anxiety of constantly having to secure a job, the pressure to publish and secure grants, and also the unpredictability of location, housing, and social support systems, right? Having to move suddenly to another country, it's really stressful in the sense of like, how am I going to pay the rent? You need to pay like a deposit, maybe 2 deposits because you're a foreigner. So it's a huge financial and emotional investment that you need to do every time that you move. Then there is the isolation and loneliness and this feeling of not belonging anywhere, right? Starting over with friendships and colleagues. And this is very important because in academia, like in many other fields, going higher in the ladder is related to having a network, right, in your workplace. So maybe you tell me how to make a network if you are constantly moving. It's very difficult, right, if not impossible. Then there is the depression and burnout. This is a combination of everything, right? Workload, precarity, repeated dislocation, feelings of failure for not being able to land a permanent position, right? As I was saying before, these are mostly based on contacts and networking. And the relationship strain, right? So many people are might relate of being in long distance relationships, not only when it comes to partners, but also families. And this has a toll on you. So after going through this for several years, I felt it, right, in my physical health and mental health. And then in 2022, so I mean, it took me quite some time to understand, but I understood. I just thought this is enough, right? I need to take care of me, and I can't be moving, like chasing the carrot all over the world, right? If the research is here, then I move. If it's there, then I move. If it's wherever else, then I move. So in 2022, after a lot of therapy and coaching processes, I decided finally where I wanted to be and how I wanted to live my life, regardless of the job. Just to summarize everything, because it would be really long, really. What I wanted to show with this one of the final slides is that academia, it's a way for those of us who like research and who like to maybe explore new things, develop new ideas, and so on and so forth. It could be a good way, but believe me, there are actually many, many other ways to get fulfillment beyond academia. Right now, my sort of professional life looks a bit like this puzzle here. So on the one hand, I continue to do research. I still have a grant, and sometimes I conduct consultancies for humanitarian organizations or other organizations, mostly on gender. Then I also do coaching. So as part of my own coaching process, because I was really lost, right, on what to do and where to go, I got a certificate, and I started to see that I was actually helping people, especially people who were struggling in similar professional or life situations, like hypermobility in academia or in other types of profession, or being stuck in academia and wanting to leave to the industry, let's say. So I started coaching people stuck in these sort of situations. Then I also conduct workshops and capacity building on gender and inclusion for organizations mostly, right? NGOs, humanitarian organizations, and so on. And the rest of the time I work on my self-development, which I think for many of us working in academia and research is very important to continue to develop yourself. I think, at least for me, it's something that I have missed in jobs that become very monotonous, let's say. So this is a crucial part for my work life and for my personal life. And just to close this presentation, I just prepared some points, right, on the hidden costs, of making it in academia. And I would say not only in academia, in many professional areas, right, where it requires, it's very demanding. But because I come from academia, I will focus here on this area. First of all, precarity is the norm, right? Unstable contracts, low pay, unclear futures. In Europe, not all over Europe, but in many European countries, we are lucky enough to have good funding that allows you to live, have a normal life, let's say, right? While you're doing your PhD, maybe save a little bit, but I know in some other countries, this is not the case. The burnout culture, right? It is success is often, if not always, equated with overwork, hyperproductivity, and personal sacrifices, like not investing any time for any hobbies or any personal relationships, let's say. There is this gatekeeping and hierarchy sort of like nature in there. And so basically accessing to fixed positions often depends on who you know and not just what you do. And this is related to this sort of exclusion, right? That sometimes comes wrapped in excellence. So this narrative of meritocracy often ignores structural inequalities that disadvantage many people, such as women, caregivers, or other racialized scholars. The issue that I mentioned before, sexual harassment and lack of accountability, not only when it comes to sexual harassment, but also many other difficult situations, right, that take place in the field, but also outside the field within academia. whereby very often they are either silenced or minimized. You're encouraged not to talk about it, and reporting it may backfire on you professionally. And then, well, this is not my case, but I have seen it in colleagues and friends, the motherhood penalty, right? Like women who become mothers face slower career progression, less visibility, and more scrutiny. So what I know now, looking back in the days, right? I think the most important thing that you can do is to choose the life you want and then find a job that adapts to it. Remember that nothing is forever, not even academia. A PhD is just a job and not a life sentence. You're allowed to grow, to change paths if you like, and to say at any point, this no longer works for me. And it doesn't matter if it's on the first year of the PhD or on the last year of the PhD. Just to give you an example, a former colleague of mine, she decided to not finish her PhD when she was about to write the conclusion of her thesis, right? So was her level of stress and burnout. Everyone was begging her, her supervisor was begging her, please do it. I will even write it for you. But she was like, I'm done and I don't want to do this. So believe me, nothing is forever and you are allowed to change at any time. Something very important during the PhD and also postdoc is to take the best and leave the rest. So keep your curiosity, the critical thinking, the hunger for learning. I think those are great skills that we all have when we end up in academia, right? So just try to develop this and just avoid any toxic patterns that might develop, right? When it comes to relationships with supervisors, competitivity, this feeling of I have to produce more. Forget about this and focus on enjoying the process. I would say this is crucial. And finally, remember that science in the end happens everywhere, in communities, in conversations, in activism, and in your daily life. So not just in lecture halls and journals. So thank you very much for your attention. And I will stop here. I think I'm on time. So thank you. I will then stop sharing here. And yeah, happy to take questions, comments.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Esther, for the very informative talk. It's really a privilege to learn from you. My name is Ester David, and I serve at TESIMIT's Genetic Resources Program as an associate scientist in the genome editing team. I'm really excited about the conversation we are going to have for many reasons, but particularly because you're committed to catalyzing the change that all of us want to see in the society, but we are often too scared to initiate that change. And also because you have had the courage to question social norms and talk about some very challenging topics and calling out sexual harassment in the field and questioning the traditional supervisor-student power dynamics. So to start with, Esther, you mentioned that, and before that, I hope you've had the opportunity to see lions in Africa. You said that you
Yes.
always
I did.
Okay, yeah.
I worked in Kenya for a consultancy for a
Oh,
while, and they took us to a safari. So that was, yeah, I had that experience.
oh, that's great. Let me know if you want to go back. I'm from Kenya. I would be glad to take you
Interesting.
back there
I
for more
will. I
safaris.
will remember it.
Okay, yeah. So you mentioned that your curiosity began at Alikoi when you were growing up with your grandparents, watching soap operas and documentaries. I would love to know to what extent did those early questions of who wrote these documentaries, who filmed it, and what was the real story? How did that fuel your passion for understanding human behavior and challenging social norms?
Thank you. Yes, indeed. It seems like unrelated, right? Like, but the thing is, for me at the time, the documentaries were on animals, right? I think nowadays there are more variety of these sort of documentaries where you can actually see those based on, well, different types of human lifestyle settings, right? In different types of in different parts of the world. So let's say now I can see a documentary on Kenya, for example, and the life in Kenya, not just the animals in the safari in Kenya, right? At the time, however, it was only the animals. So this was the first trigger. However, when I grew older, right, and I was a teenager, I remember I started to watch. I'm sure you know Lonely Planet, the guides. And there used to be these documentaries as well on, well, people going to this country, to this other country. And while sometimes it was highly touristic, right, from a very touristic perspective, some other times it was highly related to more cultural aspects, no, of life. And I think it was at that point that I started to make this connection of, oh, I really like to see how other people in the world are living, right? So this was one point. And then another point was also a very funny one. And so when I was a teenager as well, we went on holidays during the summer to a nearby beach. It's called Benidorm. I guess many people know, especially in Europe. And it's a very, very touristic place, right? And loads of British people, German people, like people from other European countries, right, come there for the holidays. So to me, coming from this small town, that was, I think, the first encounters I had with foreigners. And I was just fascinated, right? Like these people speaking these languages and doing these things that we don't do here, right? So I would say it was this combination of these three situations, right? The documentaries, then later these other documentaries on more cultural aspects, and then my first experiences with foreigners that triggered this idea: I want to travel, and I want to get to know different cultures. And well, my first trips were to within Europe, to the UK, Germany, and so on. But then later on, when I had the opportunity to do it in Africa, so there was this time when I thought, oh, look, remember back in the days? Then I thought I saw these animals documentaries, and that was my dream. And now I'm doing it somehow, right? Maybe not exactly filming the animals in the savannah, right? But learning on other people's cultures.
Oh, thank you, Esther. So your life and career has been laced with a lot of hypermobility across the UK, Netherlands, Sudan, Germany, and now in Mexico. And you mentioned that this hypermobility comes with the hidden cost of chronic stress, isolation, loss of belonging, and all that. And so, what would be your advice to any researcher who is finding themselves on the move time and again? Because we really want to avoid these hidden costs.
Well, I would say it comes at different stages, right? Because for me at the beginning, it was very exciting and I learned a lot. So it's not to say that it's a bad thing. It's actually nice to travel. And I would say from an academic perspective, it's actually very important as well, because you get to know different points of view, right? I don't think I would think the same way nowadays if I would have stayed in Spain my whole life. Let's put it like this. So to a certain degree, I think it's necessary and it's very useful. So, and as long as it feels okay for you, then I would say enjoy it, right? But there might come a time, as it happened to me, when it became already a little bit like a norm. So it's not I want to do that. It's more like, if I don't do this, I really don't get any grant opportunity here, because all the grants that, maybe not all, I mean, I'm just talking about the ones that I knew at the time, right? Maybe there were others that I didn't know about, but for some reason or another, many of the grants that I found involved some period abroad, if not the whole period abroad or in another country. So I would say the advice there, well, there are many advice I could give here, but first of all, consider, is this something that you want to continue doing? Because if you do, then this is totally fine. I mean, I know people who like it and they spend their whole lives from here to there, to there, to there, and it's fine to them. They are not really, annoyed by it or they don't find it difficult. But for many other people, it becomes a challenge at some point. So I would say when this moment starts to come to you that you think, I don't really want to continue doing this, then I think it's a moment to start making a plan. And when I say a plan, it's like, okay, how can I organize my professional life and my life itself so that I don't need to move anymore, right? And even though it's hard, but I mean, the next time you see an opportunity for a grant that involves moving, then you just decide not to apply for it, right? Because you know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because then once you start moving, I think it's not something that you develop, right? Like as time goes by, becomes easier and easier for you to make new friends, to find a new home, to whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's not stressful, but it's somehow interiorized, right? So you don't really feel it. But in the end, the mental stress, it's there and it comes out, believe me. So I think it's important to try to make yourself your own home. So that your home is not, sometimes we think like, oh, I need to move again and I'm leaving everything behind. And it's like, yeah, well, but if you think of yourself like everything you need, right? That was something that helped me a lot when I was like in this moving mode and I was not so happy anymore about moving. That was a thinking mode that helped me to cope with the loss, right? Because in the end, you lose a lot of things. I mean, you lose things, you lose friendships, you lose relationships, you lose the city with everything around it. It's many things that you lose, and losing things like it comes at a high emotional emotional price. So my way of thinking was, I am not leaving anything behind. I'm taking the important things with me.
Wow, that's really great. I would love to hear more about your response to the first encounters with gender bias, and because you mentioned that when you're being told we don't want women because we'll get married, we'll get pregnant. So, what are some of the strategies you develop which you think early career researchers can adopt to assert themselves in a male dominated world and a career like the one you're in? And how do you think institutions like CIMIT can better support researcher safety in challenging contexts like in the field?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first part, so this sort of like early encounters with this sort of gender discrimination in the work area, right? Because it was not the workplace, I was not hired. They didn't even hire me because I was a woman.
Mhm.
I would, I mean, if it would happen to me now, I would report it, right? And be like, look, these people are discriminating against women. And probably depending on the country where you are, unfortunately, it doesn't happen all over the world. But if you live in a country where this is not acceptable, well, hopefully they will do something, right, about it in terms of legally speaking, right?
Mhm.
Back in the days, I was young and yeah, I was like, just, I didn't know what to do. Just go home and like, oh, they don't want me because I'm a girl, right? And this is really, it's very damaging because it's just like you start to develop this idea that there are things I cannot do.
Mhm.
Even though you don't understand, like, no, but I can drive and I can speak English. But when they tell you no, because this will happen to you, even if you don't really believe it, but it's starting to grow in your head that you as a woman are limited because of your biology, because there might be things happening to you like the biological clock clicking or whatever, which I don't really believe in, but anyway. So it's stories that grow on you and you start to really tell yourself, I cannot do this, I cannot do that, because they told me several times over and over again, right?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
this is one. And then for example, the situation in Jordan I told you about, this colleague as well was sort of even blocking your work. Like, if you don't accept my advances, I'm not I'm blocking your tours.
Yeah.
just like that. So there I reported it to my boss, and the answer of my boss was like this, right? Which is also really sad that you get. But in any case, I think so in this type of situations, I would advise always report it, right, to whoever the authority is, either at your workplace, or if not, if the things go higher, well, report it to the police, right? It depends to which degree it goes, the harassment. Now, for organizations like CIMIT, I don't know whether you have some procedure in place to handle these things, but for me, I could see a huge difference between the way the university address this type of potential dangers, and the ways in which, for example, this think tank I told you I was working in Germany addressed it.
Yeah.
So in the university there was nothing, like there was just like well, enjoy the field, it's a great experience, right? It's an adventure. And this is actually the way it is portrayed, especially when it comes to anthropology and field work and this sort of thing. It's like this adventure where you go in the field and you discover new things, and and you might encounter situations that are difficult, but the way it is sold to us, it's a bit like enjoy the adventure and be strong to overcome it, to handle it. So I think that's one thing that many people are like, should I talk about it? Should I not talk about it? Am I weak if I talk about it? Am I weak if I decide to quit the field and go home? So because no one tells you, if the situation goes too far, don't do it, right? This is never told. So, and you are not given tools to address this sort of thing. On the other hand, when I worked for this think tank, I remember, before allowing anyone to go into the field, we all went through security training. Like, I think it was like a 4 days or something like this, of intensive security training, and what to do, and also how to mentally cope if something happens, right? I found this training amazing and very useful, and I just thought, look, this is how things should be done, right? Especially when like alone students are sent to wherever. Because also another thing, for instance, is to in this think tank, we used to have like a contact person back in Germany. So someone else in the team who stayed in Germany was responsible for checking up on you regularly. Is everything okay? Do you need something? Are you feeling okay? Or if you experience something like this, you had the phone number of that person and you could call them anytime, day or night. This didn't happen on the PhD, right? It's more like go and enjoy. So I think this sort of like preventive measures, and preventive in the sense of, be careful in this type of situation, be careful in this other type of situation, but also, if something happens, what should you do? This is super important to help you cope with this type of things in the field. And I don't know if you have this sort of thing in place, but I do think it's something.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
Oh, that's really great. You have you have cultivated a very strong presence on LinkedIn by
Mhm.
openly discussing fieldwork ethics, gender bias, and even job uncertainty in academia.
Mhm.
What motivates you to bring these issues into your professional network, and have those conversations influenced your research approaches or opened up new collaborations or opportunities?
No, they opened new opportunities, actually. It was never my intention. I mean, it was, for me, I have always been very, how to put it, like, whenever I see something that I feel it's not fair,
Yeah.
or that I maybe think this should change, like, just for example, this post on LinkedIn, which happened because I read a post whereby a PhD student, a boy actually. So that's a good question to bring up, that this is not only women, but also men can be in danger, right?
Yeah.
In the same or other ways. But anyways, so I saw this post of a PhD having been killed several years ago on the field, and I thought, this is unfair, right? And I got all this sort of flashbacks, no, of the situation of sexual harassment in the field and situations for which I had not been prepared, and then the attitude of the university was really not the best, let's say, right? So that's why I thought this is something that needs to, I just wanted to bring it up, right? And I was very surprised afterwards, well, like actually the next morning, when I saw so many replies to that post. And well, surprised in a sad way, right? Because there were so many women saying that they had to face similar situation, if not worse, right, during the field. And yeah, I mean, as I said, I didn't post it with any goal in my head to increase followers or whatever. It was more like, oh, this is so unfair. I need to say something about it, right? And I think we live in a time when this sort of things are possible. We can sort of like speak up and expose situations that are unfair to us or others, right? And
Yeah.
visibilizing them, I think it's very, very important, because sometimes that's the thing, people don't dare to talk about it or to complain about it. And you have the right to do so.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Esther,
Yes.
for the very informative talk you've given us. And I want to hand this back over to Isabel.
Thank you. Thank you, Esther, for having this enthusiastic and stimulating conversation with Dr. Serra Mingot. Esther David has a deep passion for translational plant biotechnology, and she's particularly committed to mentorship and capacity building in agricultural science. Thank you, Esther. So, Dr. Serra Mingot, thank you so much for your presentation. We are about to close the session. So what words of wisdom could you share with the audience as our takeaway?
Well, I think I would like to go back maybe to the first sort of like these sentences, right, in the presentation, that resilience, adaptability, and letting go, probably, right? Resilience, I think it's crucial, right, to just continue trying, but also having the wisdom or mental sort of like openness to be able to change and adapt and let go whenever things are not working. And just as just to bring back the LinkedIn post that started all of this, right? If something doesn't feel right, then it is not right.
Thank you so much. So on behalf of Dr. Brian Goldberg, Director General of CIMIT, we thank you so much for sharing with us your outstanding professional and personal journey. Very, very educative, we can say. And thank you for being a catalyst of change. We also thank the audience that joined today. And we invite you to the following Catalyst of Change, Women Leaders in Science Seminar Series. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, everyone.
Please join our next seminar in the Catalyst of Change series.